AJ. Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set, AJ. Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set. What up, boy? Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set, AJ. What up, boy? Ryan Tillman.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I am joined by the skin wonder himself, Mr. Oh No Stapopo. What's up, bro?
Bam, bam, bam. What's up, brother?
In the building, and we, by popular request, by special request, have Billy in the building, and his camera is on by popular demand. What's up, Billy?
Doing better now, man.
Billy drinking a White Claw.
It's just an energy drink.
Oh,
it's some
my
like
goodness.
all natural energy drink too, so it's not that cool.
Bruh, somebody
all
was
natural
like,
energy drink.
yeah, all natural. Somebody was like, how'd you convince Billy to be on camera again? Bro, you know, it's literally by popular. This is a true story. I did a presentation last week to a bunch of adults. Somebody in there has started following the podcast for like the last several months or so. And they said, bro, I was so enamored when I saw Billy on there. Like, I was super excited because I got to see Billy and like know who he is now and stuff like that. Like, I'm like, how does Billy keep getting all this credit? And me and AJ out here, like, you know, grinding, you know, by ourselves in bed, one pillow,
such a
no sheets.
Mysterious guy,
Bro. No lie. Like 3 weeks ago, I'm at work and a guy like stops me. He's like, hey, man, I'm a civilian. He's in the process to become a police officer. He stops me. He's like, man, I'm a big fan of the podcast. You know, you guys really motivated me to put my app in. He's probably listening to this right now. And he goes, man, I just love Billy so much. And I'm like, I don't get it. It's three of us, right? Like, I don't know what to say.
You do on the podcast picture is two black guys, but all right.
But I see how it is.
Oh,
nothing's
my
changed.
goodness,
I see.
Man.
Hey, and actually, you guys both wearing It's Needed shirts. That's like a first on accident.
It is.
Yeah.
And somebody said they love it, man. They
Somebody
said
not
AJ
the medium. They talking about social media.
Now, what's the first greatest thing about this podcast? Look at that.
Huh?
Billy on camera is the second greatest thing about this podcast.
Yeah, what is the first greatest thing?
That right here.
Oh, man. So I don't know if my boy is on, but I don't know if you guys noticed the title of today's podcast. Did you notice the title of today's podcast, AJ?
I didn't. I don't show me.
It says, I quit my job to come after Shaun King.
Let's go.
Let's
go.
Quote unquote, bruh. So let's just start, man. Let me start with that. So somebody, I made a post yesterday on my IG account, which was these officers in Atlanta saving some young 9-year-old boy who was the guy had carjacked this woman, but unbeknownst to the suspect, there was a 9-year-old boy backseat of the car. So the officers go find the car. They do the great police work that they do. And when they find him, they actually, you know, get him back to his mom. So I posted about it and I said, man, this is phenomenal work by police officers. This is the stuff that happens every single day. We just don't always hear about it and all the above. And I said, sadly, you know, it's overtaken by stuff that really shouldn't be in the media. I'll give the example, the 8-year-old boy that stole the bag of chips and it went viral because he was screaming as he was getting in the backseat of the car. So that got all this media attention for the wrong reasons when the officers were right. We've already talked about, so I'm going to go back to it, but it got all this media hype for no reason. That was something that should not have been in the media. But you have this situation like this where they rescue this 9-year-old boy, cops doing a phenomenal job. And I'm like, man, let me put this out there. I want men and women to see what officers are doing every single day. So I posted, right? So I had people in my comment section is going off. People like, oh my goodness, you know, so that's the real reason you quit your because they said something to the effect of, why do you keep saying this? You're bowing down to white supremacy and stuff like that. Blah blah blah, whatever it was. And then they said, you're gonna stop doing, you know, making all this propaganda for white supremacy, something to that effect. Can't remember what it was.
Billy getting
so anyway,
that's why I'm here.
It's actually Billy
for white supremacy.
It was actually Billy that was actually making all these comments. So anyway, yeah, keyboard warrior over there. So I said, I will stop making this content, or I will stop bringing it up because this person said, he was like, well, and I was talking about defund the police. I was like, well, people were saying like, defund the police. Why would we want to defund this? If something like this happened to me or my wife, the first thing I'm doing is calling 911, and I want the best trained officers to show up. This is why we need to stop propaganda of defund the police, abolishment of the police. So somebody said, well, why do you keep bringing up defund and all this other stuff? Joe Biden came out and said that he was going to give more money to officers and stuff like that. So why you even keep bringing it up? And I said, I keep bringing it up. I will keep bringing it up as long as you have people like Patrice Cullors, who just 2 months ago made a video on abolitionists. Shaun King, every single day he gets on his social media account, always has something negative to say about law enforcement. So I said, I'm going to keep making content like that until these people, really stop doing what they're doing. And so then somebody went on to say, oh, so that's the real reason you quit your job is to take down Shaun King. I'm like, oh, okay.
Quite a jump.
They've been following though if they know you quit your job.
They have been following, and it's like
point.
Out of all of that, out of all this video, everything, out of all that, that's what you took. Out of all those statements, that's what you took, is I quit my job to go after Shaun King. That's the first time I actually even really mentioned Shaun King on our platform like that. Like, I'd never even bring him up. There may be one time, maybe two, that I'll bring him up, but I don't really bring him up. Neither does Patrice Cullors, so I could really care less about him. But when you ask the question, why do I put out videos like this? It's for that reason, is because you have a lot of people that are pushing this negative agenda about police on the backs of all these quote unquote victims that they claim to be protecting, which they ain't gave a cent to in the amount of money that they've raised. But meanwhile, they're going and buying $1 million mansions and stuff like that. So that's how the title became, I quit my job to go after Shaun King today. So
that sounds like a t-shirt.
I should.
I will buy that t-shirt.
Hey, you know what? I might make that.
Would other people
Yeah.
buy
That's
merch
actually-
like that?
That's actually a good t-shirt
Yeah,
idea. I quit my job to go after Shaun King. Bro,
That sounds like a t-shirt.
hey, copyright.
I'm gonna just be like, this and
Copyright. So
but
yeah,
you know what,
so-
man? That's so let him talk. Let him talk. And you should have said, yep, sure did. Like this comment said, he better go in hiding. He better go in hiding because I'm coming for him full speed. But the thing is like people also need to understand that what he represents is in contrast to what you represent. So therefore, in a sense, you should be going after him because he has such an influence and he's influencing people to believe things that aren't real, that go against what you're preaching, which is the reality of the world. So absolutely, you should go. You should be going for him.
and
You should be
here's
going towards all the rest of these people.
And I think it's less going after them as it opposed to like, okay, they're spewing their nonsense, so let's actually give what we like the truth. You know what I mean? Like good information versus going after somebody.
No, his gloves off. We coming at him. That's
Yeah.
what Ryan on.
Well-
Ryan out here like
He stays strapped.
all day, every day.
bang bang.
Well, the thing is his reach. He has 3 million people, and what baffles me is I'm pretty fair. I would like to say I'm pretty fair. I just posted a video last week of officers that screwed it up when it came to this autistic kid. Like, we screwed it up, and I went out there and called it out. Like, I straight up called it out and said, hey, you know what? Somebody said they're gonna buy. Hey, we're definitely getting a shirt. Say, I'm definitely gonna get a shirt that says that. So mark my words. But
little rough.
but the thing is like, I just made a video last week about officers that screwed it up with this autistic kid. And, I called us out and said, hey, you know what? They could have did this better. And the guy that actually he's an officer that taught this class about policing the mentally ill, policing kids with autism, sent me a message request and said, hey, you're spot on with your assessment of that video. The officers could have been better and all this other stuff. I do stuff like that. When's the last time you seen Shaun King come out to his 3 million followers and say, you know what? I got this one wrong, guys. The police were actually good, or hey, man, the police actually doing their job. So they'll come after me and say how I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm sowing all this discord and, I'm promoting white supremacy. But somebody like that goes out and says something completely false and completely negative, and you won't hear a cricket about it on his social media page by his so quote unquote followers. That's what I don't get.
What's exciting about this though is, we've had this conversation plenty of times. On the other side of like a lot of adversity is always like a great success. And that just tells you like, not only are you on the right track, but like you're on the brink of a breakthrough. So like that's exciting. And to our listeners and our viewers, like one thing that you need to understand is like, this ain't going to stop, Ryan. Like this is going to add fuel to the fire and like really get him going. So like or if you're mad now, like just wait. Like if you're watching me to the point where like you already know the steps that I've taken and like now you're deciding to publicly hate on me, just wait. So like you need to take that as like motivation and encouragement, because like throughout this profession, you're going to face that, especially if you come in with the mindset that we constantly preach, like make the profession better, be the change that you want to see in the profession. Like you're going to have naysayers. You're going to have people who tell you like, oh, you can't do this. You need to stop doing this. You're only doing this for this reason. But like what you need to understand is like Ryan wouldn't be in the shoes that he's in today if he gave up any time that he's faced adversity. The same thing with Billy and the same thing with me. So you need to face that head on. And that's exactly what Ryan's going to do.
And he also gave me a TV idea. So there you go.
And he about to make some money off of it.
Yeah, they doing it. So why not? Why can't I? You know what's funny though is I don't think you would ever see somebody like him or Patrice Cullors go out there and put themselves in the scenarios of police officers. Because if they did that, then they basically would almost put their livelihood on the line because they might fear of being awakened out of their sleep, for fear of being quote unquote woke. Like if they went and did like some scenarios that we put people through a few weeks ago, if you put people through that, I don't think they would go through something like that, because they would realize, and the world would realize, like, wow, it wasn't that easy after all, right? And so what's interesting is like you ask somebody, if I asked you, hey man, like if you don't like officers this much, you think officers are this bad, why don't you just come do some role playing as a police officer? So maybe you might get a little bit of insight from a pure educational standpoint. I guarantee you they would say no, because it would compromise. They would compromise everything they build their foundation on.
I know I gotta be careful how I say this. I know a politician who is and was very against the police. And this person agreed to go through one scenario and have it filmed with the intent to show the world, look, I made it through the scenario. I was right about the police, and here's your proof to shut everybody up. This person at one point took his or her shoe off and threw it at the suspect, who had a gun and a knife. Listen to me.
I'll pay money to watch this video.
Out, straight up condition black, failed the scenario beyond belief. It wasn't even one of the worst scenarios as far as like stress levels go. And then immediately afterwards instructed the person who was in control of the video to delete it.
I would pay money to get access to that video, which it probably don't exist because they probably deleted it.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone.
But that proves my point. That right there legitimately proves my point. People, they would not do it because it would sacrifice everything they stand on.
And that's what's
interesting. So if you were really about the cause, if you're really about promoting good things and lifting up your people out of this and that, then why not go try to see the other side of it? Like the first thing we talked about last week when I was making that video about Black Lives Matter and abolition, is I called Artie. And Artie and I don't always see eye to eye on everything. Artie's my brother from another mother. I love Artie to death, but we don't always see eye to eye on stuff. You know what I mean? He subscribed more to the stuff of abolition than, I will ever, or other people. And so I could have easily just said, I'm going to make this video on Black Lives Matter. Screw what the other half has to say about it. Screw what abolitionists have to say about it. I'm just going to make it anyway. Or I could say, let me just try to attempt to see what they're trying to convey. You know what I mean? Because maybe I might learn something, or it might just actually solidify what my stance is. But the mere fact that I can take a venture into somebody else's shoes tells you where my heart is at. My heart is that I want to do the right things for the right reasons. But we talk to people like that, you ask them to come walk in our shoes, they won't do it because they feel like, oh, I don't need to do that. Why would I need to do that? Because their whole premise, their whole foundation, their basis is built off of people that are fueled by anger towards police.
Have you ever watched the documentary about, I'm trying to look up his name right now, Daryl Davis?
Is that the guy that took his shoes in the white supremacy or KKK?
Yes. Like this dude, a black guy, started befriending like KKK members, and it got to the point where like he was like good friends with like a Grand Poobah or like somebody really high up in the KKK, and in doing that, he has a collection of authentic Klans hoods and robes from people who left the KKK, and in part of leaving gave this man, here's my hood, here's my robe, I'm done with the KKK. Like, you showed me that I was wrong in doing and feeling the way that I felt.
He was on Rogan, right? That's where I saw him.
Was he on Rogan?
He might.
He may have been. He's got a crazy story. He had a documentary. I
musician.
forget what I was. Maybe
You know you make it
YouTube.
when you're on Rogan. You know you make it when you're on Rogan.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's even that big time. It was just a good story. You know, it's just like an interesting story this guy has.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
y'all
mean,
need to get us on. Y'all need to get me, AJ, and Billy on Rogan. So make that happen, y'all. Make
for
sure y'all
sure,
email over
for
there.
sure.
Get us on
A
Rogan.
podcast on a podcast. I'm with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I always thought that was like so inspiring. There's a post that was just up. Let me see if I can find it, from Ellie Wilson. And they say that social media has a huge influence on high schoolers. My peers watch these things and chant ACAB, but when I ask if they ever met a police officer in real life, the answer is no. Let me tell you what I do when I see somebody who has, like an ACAB flag, or, anti-police apparel on, or whatever. I go and I talk to that person. I go and I force them to have a conversation with me. Hey, how you doing today? Where you headed? It sure is nice outside. Oh, you got pit bull? I got pit bull too. What's your dog's name? Where you get yours from? I got mine from down the street. And before you know it, I'm having a full-fledged conversation with this man or with this woman. And then by the time I leave, they go, man, that was kind of crazy. I had a normal conversation with this person. And if they're bold enough to put, we'll just stick with ACAB. If they're bold enough to put a flag on front of their house or in front of their residence that says ACAB, if you're able to plant the seed that eventually sprouts into the plant, resulting in them changing their mind about law enforcement, then don't you think that they would be bold enough to put a "I support the police" flag in front of their house once you change their mindset? And don't you think that they're bold enough to have conversations with people, to influence them and to change their minds about people once you change their mindset? And that's how you have to look at it. It's like when we talk about people like, like Shaun King and the woman from like Black Lives Matter, like for me, like I'm going to give you no other option but to see the positivity that I do day in and day out, because you can't deny it. Like I want my name to get brought up so much around you that you block me because you're tired of seeing my videos, and you still see them because people are stealing them from my page and posting them because they want you to see this person. And every time you go and speak, and every time you travel to these schools, people bring me up and bring Ryan up and bring the podcast up and the work that Billy's doing and all of this in front of your face to make you uncomfortable. And eventually that seed will sprout and people will go, okay, but they the cool ones. They're the what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say example. They're the exception. They're the exception. But that's a start. That's a start.
Man, you're so right with that, and that's what's fun. That's what motivates me. Like they say those things, and then not realizing, like today, I'm out here and I did presentations at 2 schools this morning. We're at a school this morning, and it's like, this is the work. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's like we can all get on social media and say this and say that. I can get on YouTube or Instagram, make comments all day, but who's actually out here doing the work? What's even funny is I got a comment on one of the same posts yesterday. Actually, no, this was a different post. And somebody said, I can never trust anything you raccoons post. For all we know, this police cursed this guy, and this guy told him he had health issues. No sound, can't trust the police. Call me a raccoon.
A raccoon? I never heard somebody call somebody a raccoon. The
whole thing, bro. I just kind of laughed at it. And like it, but it goes to show, like, you have no idea who I am. You have no idea who my family is. But because I support people that wear a badge and carry a gun and wear a uniform, you have the audacity to call me a raccoon. You have no idea who I am. You have no idea. A raccoon, not just a coon, but you call me a raccoon. Like the hard bro. Like the hard, bro. And it amazes me. And I'm like, would the same people, would the kids say that? Would that kid say that the kid that I gave a pair of shoes to last week, would he call me that? Right. Would the family that you and I helped out on the call for service, would they say that?
Right.
But you say that why? Because you're behind a phone or behind a computer and you
Oh,
feel like you
keyboard
can have no
warriors.
filter, a keyboard warrior, and just say whatever the heck you want to say. Would you even say it to my face? And so the point is that we've gotten to a place in society where we just have no filters, and you are so empowered. And I think that's what it is. People feel like they are empowered by standing on a certain side of the fence, and that gives them purpose in life. Like, my purpose now is to go and be this warrior for this cause. And, I have to stand by because this is what gives me purpose. My purpose is to go out there and defend people that are victims of police brutality. And not realizing, like, no, your purpose should really be bringing unity, bringing division, or bringing like a balanced approach, seeing both perspective of it. If Shaun King and Patrice Cullors, if they were truly about bringing unity, you would actually see more of that stuff on their platforms. You would actually see them actually highlight some of the good that police officers do. You would actually see them highlight other people that are doing really good work in communities. Hey, look, you know what? Even though I don't like the police, I still see that there are some good police officers out there. You would see that more often, but you don't, because they stand behind this whole ploy that, hey, police are the enemy. We don't need police and all this other stuff. And that's how they continue to fill their pocketbook. So I just thought it was fun.
That's how you can always tell the difference between someone who has like their agenda and they're not able to see the other side, and someone who's like willing to go, I'm wrong. Is if they're publicly saying that, like, I was right, or I missed the mark on this one, or if they're highlighting the people that are doing what you want them to do. Like, that's what I really don't understand about like individuals like that, or pages like that are so anti-police. And then there's a video of a police officer doing something that's exactly what these people or these pages want officers to do, and they still don't promote that. And it's like, what's your real agenda here? Like, what is your real agenda here? And I hate to say this, but we family on the podcast, so I'm gonna put it out there. I find joy in making those people lose sleep. I do. And like, I'm gonna be 100% transparent. Like, I find joy in that. Like, I can't tell you how many times, just locally, like where I work, how many times I've come across people who refuse to talk to me that I've never had one conversation with. You know why? Because I don't fit their agenda, and they can't argue it, because anywhere they go in this city, people will love me because I've been doing this for years, because I have relationships with these people. Just today, I'm talking to a known gangbanger, drug dealer who was on an ankle monitor. We had to go up on his front porch just to talk to him. And he's like, man, I'm the last one left. His homeboy just got killed, I think like 2 months ago. He's still grieving. He had just got caught with a pistol, so he's on house arrest. He's got court coming up Wednesday. He was just like talking to him. He's like, I'm the last one left. Like, I'm the last OG. All these kids keep coming to me for advice, and like, I just don't know what to tell them. He's getting like emotional talking to me. And in that conversation, cars were slowing down, looking like, hey, what's the police doing up there? And he'll tell them like, hey, keep driving, I'm good. Like this Officer Johnson, this Officer AJ, I'm good. And it's like, people hate to see that, because the people driving by have such a disdain and dislike for the police that they want him to be like, yeah, the police up here harassing me. But when he hits them with the, hey, I'm good, this Officer AJ, they're like, oh, and they're driving away, gripping the steering wheel and burning out down the alley. And it's like, I find joy in that, because that your motives, the information that you're pushing out there, what you're doing is wrong, and that what we're doing is right, and that right will always prevail. I find joy in it. I truly do.
Absolutely. So what I want to do is I want to shift gears, and we're going to talk about the other side of the coin right now. We're going to talk about the officers that shouldn't be in the profession, the ones that do screw it up. And so the reason I'm going to shift gears, actually, I'm going to pull it up here. I'm not going to name the agency right now, but I got sent an article. This was about last week or so. And in the article, let me see. The article says, police department's Met unit team includes gang-like group that sexually assaulted a child. Whoa. And then it goes through and it talks about all these different things that these guys were doing. You know what I mean? Like, they were off duty. They sexually assaulted a girl by, not touching her, or touching her inappropriately. They were, they all have tattoos. They're all skulls and stuff like that, throwing up like if you didn't know no better, you would think it's a gang. Like, I mean, I've worked some gang stuff before, like, so you kind of get familiar with what gangs. So if you didn't know no better, you would think like, oh man, this is like, they got Sorry about that. Did you hear that in your thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Shoot, sorry about that.
You gonna silent me? Call right
I
back.
know. Golly, where'd I go now? So, anyways, in these pictures, you would think that they were a gang. So I actually talked to some people from this organization, and the guy that I know is really, really good guy, really, really solid guy. So I want you guys to know that I know him very, very well, but he knows these people. And so he was saying, which I don't agree with, he was saying that when you're dealing with people that talking about police officers, when you're dealing with police officers that are dealing with the worst of the worst, people that are just straight up savages going out there committing heinous crimes against other people and stuff like that, as a police officer, you got to kind of start to adapt your way of thinking, like this whole a wolf sheep or sheep wolf mindset or whatever. What's the word? Wolf sheep? What am I talking about? Sheep wolf? Is that what it is?
A wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Or
But you got
sheepdog. Which one are you talking about?
that's what
So
it is.
he's
Sheepdog.
defending the touching the little girl.
So let me So he wasn't defending that. He
Yeah.
wasn't defending that, but he's saying like how they got, to this place where they have these tattoos and stuff like that is like in their minds, they somebody said I got no key ringtone. So anyway, in their minds, they were this is how they got like associated with this mindset of going out there because you're one unit and it's us versus the world type mentality, right? So I went on to say, I said, okay, but what you don't understand, or what I personally believe, is that when you find your identity, or when you don't have an identity, it's easy to subscribe to somebody else's identity. The same reason why people go out there and get involved in gangs. Like if you don't have a brother or a dad or some friends or family that bring you in, you're always looking to feel like you belong somewhere. The three of us, our identity is found in Christ. So I'm not actively out there searching for something that makes me feel wholesome as a man. Like I'm not out there looking for something to be a part of this huge club because I have no identity. My identity is found in Christ. My identity is found in my wife. My identity is found in my kids. So I'm not out there looking to be that guy that's always on duty with the SWAT team. I'm not looking to be that guy that's always hanging out with my police officer homies off duty, because I have an identity found in other things. And so when you look at a group like this, these guys may not have that. They don't have the identity outside of law enforcement. So law enforcement becomes their world. And then when that happens, it almost starts to shape your mindset. And you start to become the same thing that you are against. You start doing things that you technically are against. You start doing the molestations. You start getting the gang tattoos, start throwing up the gang signs and stuff. And then what happens is we already struggle as it is with law enforcement, trying to keep ourselves clean or keep the profession clean. So when you go out there because you have identity issues, then now the rest of the profession suffers because you went out there and did something you shouldn't be doing. So I want to talk about that because there's two sides of the coin. Like I told you, I'm balanced. Like I'm somebody that will defend law enforcement all the way. I will ride the wheels. I will ride this thing till the wheels fall off, because I know the great work that men and women do. But at the same time, it is important to recognize that there are people in our profession that shouldn't be in our profession. It is what it is. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. You guys can go look up this article. This was a recent article, and it's kind of crazy when you actually hear what's going on. So what are your guys' thoughts?
So let me not say that. So as far as I was going to say something, people was going to be like, oh my goodness. So as far as the tattoos, I actually know of a group of officers who all got matching tattoos, and they kind of went through the same thing, but wrongfully. They got matching tattoos because they became like such a close group of friends over the years that they worked together, that they were just kind of at a party and they were like, we should all get matching tattoos, and they all got matching tattoos. And the result of that was people were like, y'all are a gang, like y'all can't work anymore, like y'all got matching tattoos, because some of them were visible, you could see them, and people were like kind of putting it together, and they're like, where it got out, like all these guys got matching tattoos, and they kind of got like disbanded. They were like, well, you got to go work this area, you got to go work this area, like y'all can no longer work together because y'all are kind of a gang. And it really did the city a disservice, because they were a good group of officers. They just had like really close knit camaraderie. Now, of course, I don't support the other end of that. You're doing illegal stuff in uniform, going against what we stand for. That is the issue. And when you combine that with that group mentality, especially like matching tattoos and insignia and hand signs, then that's when you become a criminal gang or a criminal organization. And I feel like that's the difference. So I understand the tattoo part to an extent, just because I personally know officers who have gotten in trouble for that, that I don't believe that they should have, just because they're really good officers. And that was like an outside of work type of thing that kind of bled into the profession. And the tattoos weren't even inappropriate. They just said like the area they work and something
Yeah.
else. But the other side, when you combine those two, is a big issue.
And that's where I'm getting into is I don't think the tattoos in and of itself are bad. Which these tattoos though, they straight up look like some street gang criminal gang tattoos. Like it was like the skull and bones with like all this other stuff. Like, but again, it's the tattoo's not necessarily the issue. It's everything that comes with it. And it's like, we are called to be set apart. Like I don't have no problem with people. I mean, men do it in everything. It's not just in law enforcement. We get around, we get in a motorcycle club, you get tattoos, you join a freaking football league, you get whatever it is. I understand that part of it. But in law enforcement, when you start doing criminal behavior, when you start doing all this other stuff, what does it say? Oh, their internet is bootleg. I know. When you start doing all this, why are y'all doing that to us?
Why did that come from us?
I don't know. I plugged it in. It was like breaking barriers.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Oh, man, y'all threw me off. But anyways, what I was saying is that when you start doing all the other stuff that comes with it, I think that's where the problem lies. And then like people already have a thing against law enforcement. And so when you start, breaking laws, when you start doing all this other stuff, and then they go and see these matching tattoos, they automatically want to associate with us as a gang, which we know, like, man, there ain't no freaking gang. But there are people, yet LA County deputies a long time ago that went down. They were doing some crazy, and slowly but surely you do start to become a gang. If you actually look up the definition of what a gang is, and if you're doing everything that definition says, you become a gang. And so that's why I think like it's important as police officers to know where your identity is at. We've said this before, like my identity was never found in being a police officer. Police officer is what I do. I love being it. It's what I'm called to do. But at that same time, like it's never something that I will identify as like, you know what, a police officer is in my identity. Like this is who I am all day, every day. Like that's not, we have to have an identity outside of it, because if you don't, you're gonna take the risk of falling into stuff that you shouldn't be caught up in.
Absolutely.
And then how to what extent too? Like, is that more important than your marriage? Is that more important with your walk with God? Is that more important than your children? Are you always hanging out with the boys now? Are you always, are you so and I think sometimes it can become where we get so focused on trying to put the bad guys away that you now start to justify, unrighteous treatment against these people in the name of justice. Yeah. Like you'll go in there and do some excessive force, and the first thing we say is, well, he deserved it. This dude went out there and did A, B, C, D, and E. Well, that doesn't necessarily justify your actions towards them. Yeah. And so you start to justify your immoral and unethical behavior in the name of justice, and that's where the slippery slope comes.
It goes back to what we were originally talking about. So like if you're listening to this and you get upset at the Shaun Kings and the Black Lives Matter movements, or whatever movement you are, person or organization that you want to reference here, but you don't call out bad police officers, then you are the same. You're just on the other end of the spectrum. And until we start to do that, like until we start to call each other out and hold each other accountable, these two sides are just going to continue to grow in size and further apart and further apart. And before we know it, we are going to be so far away from each other that we're going to have to work 10 times, 100 times harder to bridge this gap, because there are officers out there who do bad things. There are bad people who are police officers, and those people make the work that we're doing so much harder and so much difficult. When something like that happens, it's not 2 steps back, it's 100, it's 200 steps back that now we have to take forward to get to where we were at before that happened. But the only way to lighten that blow is for us as law enforcement officers to step up and go, we don't support that. We don't agree with that. We're going to stand against it. We're going to link arms with you guys and you girls and show that we're in solidarity against that action or against that person who did what they did. And then instead of the 100 or the 200 steps that we had to take back, maybe it will knock it down to 50 and 100 or 30 and 50. And then we still have work to do because we have to repair that. But at the end of the day, like, it's up to us. And, I hate to say that, but like, you have to hear it. Like, it's up to us to put in that work, whether you believe it or not, whether you want to, whether you agree with what I'm saying. Like, I'm telling you, it's up to us to do that work, because if you're not doing that work, then you have no right to complain about the situation that we're in as a profession.
So my question would be is how do you call out the bad officers? Because as stupid of a question as it sounds, I think it's a legitimate question. If you're listening to this, we say, okay, well, you need to call out the bad officers. Well, what does that look like? How do you do that?
Yeah.
I obviously know how I do it. Like, one of the ways I do it is obviously utilizing my social media platform, but that's not for everybody. So if you're not utilizing social media, how do you call out the bad officers and acknowledge that they exist? Because if that's a part of the solution, then how do you do that?
Well, and how do you do it like within a department? So like if you see bad work being done and you're an officer with one of your colleagues, how do you do that without becoming like that guy? You know what I mean?
I mean, there's a process. There's a process for that. Like, whether it's internal affairs, like whether it's supervisors, whether it's going directly to that person and talking to them, there's like definitely a process. You have to not be afraid to be that guy. And I think that's what we get wrapped up on. Like, we get wrapped up as like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to get blackballed. But at the end of the day, like, I'm willing to be that guy. I'm willing to get blackballed. Like, I'm willing to put my name out there because I truly care about our profession. And I see that the what this person is doing is detrimental to that. Like, that mindset of like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want people to look at me like, oh, I can't be trusted around this person, is the reason why people don't trust us. Right? Like, that's the what's the code of silence? Is that what they call it? What do they call it? That's the code of silence that people talk about. That exact thing is what people reference. Like, oh, there's a code of silence. Like, even if you see an officer do something crazy, you're not going to say, or you're not going to do anything about it. Like, that is what people reference. And you're right. Like, somebody just commented, the problem is people are scared of retaliation. You have to not be. Like, you have, like, if you're about this, like, if you truly care about this, you have to not be scared of retaliation. Like, you have to not be scared about what people are going to think or say or do, because you're so focused on, this person is detrimental to what I believe in. I need to expose this person. I need to have a conversation with this person. You choose the route, right? Like, there are some things that could be handled by a conversation. If I see somebody acting a certain way, I'm gonna pull them aside. I've had many conversations with officers one-on-one. Hey, I noticed yesterday on that run, you showed up, you kind of did this. I didn't like the way that you did that. So either you're not gonna show up on any of my runs, or we got some work to do, because you can't patrol this area acting the way that you do. I have also had plenty of heated conversations during roll calls. Plenty. I'm talking to where people get so pissed off they leave. And I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, they know you can't do that stuff around me. Like, you can't say that stuff around me. You can't act the way that you do around me. And really, in the long run, I'm more respected because of that. Yeah. When people become that guy, it's because they're afraid to speak up when something's wrong, or that they just go with the flow. Then you become that guy, because people see like, well, you have no soul. Like, you have no identity. Like, you're just going with the flow. I could go out here and kill somebody, and you're gonna be like, yeah, AJ killed the mess out of that guy.
Well, I guess in a perfect world, you'd want your department to be healthy enough to where if you are that guy calling people out, it's a good thing. Like, hey, AJ is constantly calling people out because he cares, and that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know if that happens or not, but that would, in a perfect world, is what you'd want.
It is. It's tough, because like, you have to think like, this is a good conversation. This profession forces you to grow close to your coworkers in a way that I don't think many other professions aside from the military does, right? Like when you go out and you work with these people, like, I call like Jones, the guy that I work with every day, like, he's my brother. And like, I don't just say that to say it. Like, I truly look at him like he's my brother. We've been in so many life or death situations. We've gone through injuries before. Like, I've rode in the back of an ambulance with him more than once when he has gotten hurt. I've been in the ER with him when he's been getting operated. Like that is my brother. We've been through it. But the issue is, like, when you grow that bond so closely with your precinct or with the area, the zone that you work, and then something happens, you're now faced with a dilemma. Like, well, this guy's like my family to me, but what he did is wrong and it goes against what I believe. How do I address that?
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like that's up to you as the viewer and the listener. But one thing is for certain is you have to address it. And that is what doesn't happen. Like, go and talk to him. If you need another person, hey, this other guy that I work with, he gonna sit in a room. That way he can kind of mediate things because I'm kind of pissed off. I know you're gonna be pissed off that I'm bringing this up. Bring it up at roll call. Have your whole precinct know what's on your heart, right? Like, there are ways to go about it. And if it's egregious enough, go that way. Talk to a supervisor. Go to IA. Like, I don't shy away from any of that.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to this whole notion. I'm gonna bring up again. I always bring this up, but your faith. Like, you have to know that God will. It's important to have a relationship with God because you got to realize that He's gonna get you through those storms, even though you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not to say that if you do say something, like, you probably will go through it. Like that article I mentioned, the guy that actually sent it to me was one of the guys that actually brought it up and got demoted, like legitimately got demoted, got his stripes removed from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
because he brought up the bad stuff going on.
Well, because yes, and then the chief, because the chief was shady as well. It sounds like the chief demoted him. Now I don't know the whole thing. This is an active investigation, but in doing so, he ended up getting demoted. So you have to know, like, your relationship with God has got to be strong, because when you do something like that, that's all you're gonna have to fall back on. Is like, I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons. And as long as you stand on that, it doesn't mean that the road won't get rocky.
Yeah.
But at least you can always stand up and say, I did the right thing for the right reasons. And if you can't stand on that, then I'm sorry. But I think that's kind of one of the ways where that's what should give you the hope and the strength to do something like that, because that is not an easy thing to do, is to call out, especially one of your peers. And that's
For
what
sure.
it baffles me sometimes when people are like, well, all you got to do is, it's so easy for you to call out. If you see somebody not doing the right thing, it's easy for you to intervene, but it ain't that easy, because and I think for them it's easy because they're looking at it from the outside looking in. But if you compare that to any other job where you develop relationships with your coworkers for years, and you see your coworker doing something that's immoral, unethical, like, the answer, like, the easy thing should say, like, oh, I'm gonna stop them from doing it right away, and I'm gonna tell a supervisor. Like, that's what you would say on the answer to the oral interview question when they ask you, what do you do if you see somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing? But where the rubber meets the road, you're talking about somebody that you develop relationships with, that and now they put you in a compromising position because now they're doing unethical behavior. That's where it gets hard. So yes, the right thing to do should be call them out, report to a supervisor. But it ain't as easy as people like to say and say, oh, I'll do that all day. That'd be like me seeing my wife doing something she shouldn't be doing. Like, my innate ability is going to be like, man, like, I got to go into protector mode. Like, this is somebody I love and care about. But at the end of the day, like, what is right, what's right or wrong? You know what I mean? So, go ahead, AJ. I know you're going to say something else.
I was just going to say, like, you touched right on it, man. And I think that goes back to, like, a police officer is not who I am, but I am who I am because I am a police officer, if that makes sense. Like a police officer isn't my core identity. But I maneuver certain ways and I interact certain ways because I am a police officer. And the issue is when you surround your entire life around this profession, then that's when it gets hard to do this. That's when it gets really hard to, like, confront and, like, have these conversations or call people out, because, like, this is your identity. Like, this is your entire world. And then you start to get afraid, like, well, what if I say this? And, like, police officers from all over the world or all over the city or all over the village and township or sheriff's office start to, like, turn their back on me. Then the entire world that I created, that's law enforcement, is going to start to crumble. And you choose not to do it because you're afraid that your entire world that you created, that's surrounded by law enforcement, is going to crumble. But when you have outlets and an identity outside this profession, it's a lot easier because, as Ryan said, like, all of our identities is in Jesus Christ. So, like, at the end of the day, like, we know we're going to be all right, right? Like, I know I'm going to be good. Like, no matter how bad the storm is, like, I'm promised I'm going to be good at the end of the day. Like, when I call it quits here, I'm good. And that's what keeps me going. And we've talked about it before. Like, I don't know how people get through life, especially this career, without Jesus, but that's a whole separate podcast. But I do want to get to this question that my man Alex said. or asked, he said, this might be a question you can't answer, but how many are on your side when you call them out versus being against what you're trying to accomplish? And I'll tell you right now, I've been doing this job for 12 years collectively. I had lots of conversations. Like I've driven to other areas of town and had conversations with people based off of like their actions, things that they've said, videos that I've seen, in audio clips that I've heard and whatnot. And there are two officers to this day who feel some type of way about me having conversations with me or calling them out at roll call, against the hundreds of officers that I've had conversations with. And it doesn't have to be I hate you, you need to fix what you're doing. I'm talking a conversation, right? Like if I see Ryan doing something, I'm gonna have a conversation. Hey, Ryan, man, I seen this video, bro. Like the same thing Ryan did with me when he seen that clip that was going. Ryan called me. He said, "Hey, man, I just seen this clip, bro. Like, what's going on?" I explained to him what's happening. We had a conversation about it. If you see somebody doing something, it could be that simple. Hey, man, we need to have a conversation. You know, like when I was on the scene, everything was calm. But when you showed up, you said this and it kind of blew things up. Like I'm really questioning your motive and why you showed up and said what you said. And they might be like, man, you know, I was just having a bad day, man. I regret it when I got in the car. All right, bet, man. No worries, man. You know, have a good day. I'll see you on the next run. Or it might be, you know, I hate these people. They call nonstop, blah, blah, blah. Then you got to have another conversation, right? Or you got to go take whatever steps. But like an overwhelming majority of people after I've had those conversations have said things like, man, I appreciate you having this conversation with me. I appreciate your outlook on this. Dap me up and we're still brothers. We're still sisters at the end of the day.
How healthy would the department be if everyone was kind of willing to call people out and not just like call them out, but have those discussions? Like that would be amazing.
I think it would be really healthy. But the reality is like, can it ever get that way?
Right.
And I'm saying that not because I'm saying it's so culturally, you know, poisonous or toxic, but it's like any other job profession. Like what other job profession do we know that really exists where folks be calling people out all the time? You know what I mean? And it just, I don't know if it's a hard thing to do. There's a question here that said, and this was actually pretty interesting, but it talks about the rookie officer from the George Floyd situation that just stood there. Like, one, if you know departmental culture and you're a rookie cop, your first day on the job, you don't really know what's right from wrong. Like, you honestly don't. You know what I mean? So as easy as it is to say, like, oh, he should have intervened and took him off of his neck, you're still thinking about what's going on. And so that's why this topic it requires balance to discuss, because it's so deeply layered. But yet people, when they talk about it, they make it seem like it's not that layered. They make it seem like, oh, it's this easy. The last thing I'm gonna say, and I want to play a quick video before we wrap this podcast up, but when I go back to the identity question or the identity conversation, the identity is so important. And we get wrapped up in our identity so much so that, like, when I was planning on going from full-time to part-time officer, it was one of the most difficult decisions I've ever made in my life, because I didn't know what my life looked like outside of law enforcement, because I've done it for 8.5 years. Now, granted, I'm still part-time, so that's cool, but I'm not doing what I was doing for the last 8.5 years of my life. And so there was a large part of me that was like, man, like, what else am I going to do? And you know why I was like that? I was like that because my identity over the course of 8.5 years has become being a police officer, and I forgot what life looks like outside of being a police officer. You forget, like, I have a bachelor's degree. Like, I'm a pretty good talker. I can go out and get another job.
You an athlete?
I am an athlete, baby. I'm an athlete. You know what I'm saying? Right now. But you forget, like, I had to remind myself, like, man, I can go out and do something else. Like, you know, like there's other things I can do. I can go out and put an application in and get another job, but all else fails. But you forget, because you get so tied to this identity of being a police officer. So when you realize, like, your identity is not just found in that badge and that gun, that's what also makes it easier to call out the bad, because you realize, like, look, I'm gonna stand for what's right. And, you know, I'm going to do things in good faith and good morality. And if it don't work out, I can go do something else. It doesn't mean it won't get tough. But I can go get another job because my conscience is clear. But the only way you can get to that place is by knowing that your identity is not found in the job that you do. Go ahead, AJ.
I know you want to play this video, man, but I just want to get one more thing out about this, you know, calling like bad officers out and like how difficult it's going to be. And, you know, how do you do it? And, you know, is it worth it? What if you get blackballed? All this, right? And I just want to give you a scenario. Say you are at a family gathering. It's a birthday party. You got like your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your nieces, your close friends over. Everybody's having a good time. Something happens, right? Like something gets broke. Arguments start to happen. Nothing physical. People are just kind of arguing, yelling back and forth. One of the neighbors calls the police. There's a bunch of people next door. There's a lot of screaming going on. I want the police to show up. The police show up.
Sounds like every Thanksgiving, man.
Every Thanksgiving, right? So you at Thanksgiving having a good time. Somebody dropped the turkey. Is all hell is breaking loose, right? Y'all arguing. No fight, no physical fighting, right? The police show up. First couple officers are kind of cool. They're kind of like trying to figure out what's going on, but people are still emotional, right? Because some people had some drinks, nothing physical, no threats, nothing like that. The third officer shows up and immediately pushes your uncle to the ground. All right. Hurt your uncle. Your uncle breaks his wrist to the ground. A supervisor shows up. You know, what happened? He asks you, you tell him, you know, these two officers was cool. This officer showed up, pushed my uncle to the ground wrongfully. Yes, we were upset, but we weren't threatening. We weren't physically fighting anybody. That officer was wrong. You being in that situation, when that supervisor turns to those other two officers and asks them, hey, what happened? What would you want those two officers to say? Would you want those two officers to go, yeah, Sarge, like, look, you know, we were cool. They were kind of upset, tripping, but yeah, this officer right here showed up and pushed my man down for no reason. Like that did happen. Or would you want those officers to be like, Sarge, he's drunk. We don't know what he's talking about. This officer did absolutely nothing wrong. And that is how you navigate through that terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Like you put yourself in the shoes of somebody else. Like if an officer did something wrong, that wrong action affected someone or someone's, like multiple people, and they deserve justice. Like they deserve that wrong to be right. And if that officer is willing to do that thing in front of you or in general, then they're more than likely willing to do that thing again and again and again and again. And you never know how far a conversation will go. Hey,
Absolutely.
man, you need to chill out. Why don't you ride with me for a couple of weeks, man? I can show you how I talk to people, communicate, whatever, introduce you to people. Like you have to do it. Like put yourself in the shoes of these victims. Like put yourself in the shoes of these people who are being wrong. And then it will make that decision so much easier because you go, you know what, man, if I was that person, I would want somebody to call that officer out. So I need to do this.
You're absolutely 100, AJ. I'm going to play this video. I think I played it before. I can't remember, but I think it's so applicable to what we're talking about. And then we're going to wrap the podcast up.
Under investigation after appearing to choke a fellow officer. Look at this. It's body cam footage showing the officer yelling at a handcuffed suspect and pulling his can of pepper spray. That's when a female officer grabs him, trying to de-escalate the situation, according to authorities. You can see the male officer turn around and place his hands on her throat. Listen to what a law enforcement expert said about this incident.
We see a female police officer that's finally doing the right thing, the thing we've been trying to retrain law enforcement throughout the country to do, and that is intervene when you see excessive use of force. So she does the right thing. And I think the sergeant's response to that is even more, if not just as appalling as his reaction to the handcuffed prisoner.
So, I mean, I bring that up because I thought it's so applicable to our conversation. And I mean, now I did some research. That officer, that rookie cop that did that, or that young cop that did that, she's only like 2 or 3 years on the job. I want to say like she was very, very young. And that's a sergeant. So there's some body cam that's come out since then. And that officer went off, like he went off on her. You know what I mean? Like he was like, we're gonna have a conversation about this after the fact and blah blah blah. But you know, the question is was what she did right or what she did wrong? And obviously, the obvious answer would be like, if she legitimately perceived and presumed him doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, that's automatic. Like that, kind of like that guy was saying. And I don't always agree with all the experts because I don't know where they stand or what they're expert in. But he's saying like, this is what we're trying to get officers trained to do is intervene. And you have to train that. Like, you know, we train to shoot. We train for defensive tactics. We train to clear buildings. We train for all this other stuff. Are we training to intervene? Like that is something we did. Now, my department did a few years or like a year ago where we actually trained to intervene. You see something going on, it shouldn't be going on. How do you respond? And I think you should train for that because what do you do? It's almost like that deer in the headlights. Like, dang, did I just see what I thought I just saw? Or is this happening what I think is happening? And if you're not trained to kind of like snap out of it, then next thing you know, you're going to be on the news because you got caught on film just standing by watching while he did something. And a lot of times it's not because you were negligent. It's not because you weren't like, oh man, I'm just going to let him do whatever. A lot of it's because you were freaking like kind of just trying to figure out and process what you're actually visibly seeing. So you need to train to recognize unethical and immoral behavior, so that way you can't intervene, just like we train for everything else. Go ahead.
And I do know that training is happening nationwide. But I brought this up before, is I have a concern with it. And that doesn't mean I'm against it, but I just have a concern with it. And that concern is, if I'm on scene and I'm interacting with somebody, I may have prior knowledge or special knowledge during that altercation. I may know this person just put a knife or a gun in their waistband. Now I'm hands-on. Ryan just went through this course of intervening when he feels an officer is doing something crazy. He shows up not knowing what I know while I'm interacting with this subject. Ryan, grabs me or tries to intervene. Next thing we know, this person pulls a gun out and starts shooting at both of us. It's a very interesting line that we're in now. I believe that we should offer something to tell officers that it's okay for officers to intervene when something is happening. But it's a very fine line. And, we've seen it. And I think the demonstration that I brought up before was where you see the Prince Henry or whatever, he's like doing this, and it looks like he's like flipping somebody off, and then someone took the picture and he's actually like throwing up the twos. Is you never really know. And I just want to address this Daniel guy, because he wants some attention in the comments. Appreciate your passion, buddy, but I don't know if you ever fought for your life before. I think it's safe to assume that you haven't, based off of your comments. But when you are, you're so hyper focused on controlling this individual that you may not yell out knife, or you may not yell out gun, especially if you don't know that your backup is behind you. You don't hear stuff. You don't hear car doors. You don't hear, sirens like that. Like when you're fighting for your life, like you are so hyper focused on what you're hyper focused on. And that's real. So there is a concern when we talk about things like that.
And you weren't defending the sergeant, so we can just cut it at that.
Well, and not only that, you weren't
not at all.
But the other thing too, and the last thing I'll mention, is that like every situation is isolated. Like there's so much context around every individual situation.
Yes.
So you can't treat all of them like they're the same.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes in. Like that's where common sense comes into a play, is like and using your best judgment. Like when you use your best judgment, and when you use and when you understand, like I'm on scene and something don't feel right, this officer is obviously beating somebody up who's in handcuffs, whatever it is.
Yes.
That's different. Like that's
Absolutely.
what we're talking about. Like how do you intervene on that?
Yep.
To AJ's point, he's saying like, look, if it's a scuffle and you're trying to get somebody out, we're not teaching officers to operate intervene in that situation, because you're in the fight you're in the battle, you're in the fight for your life. But if you know something that is clearly not right, if you know something that's clearly immoral, is not sitting in your spirit, that's what we're talking about. That's the intervention I'm talking about. But I understand AJ's concern, which is a righteous one, because things happen so quickly.
Yeah.
Which is why every situation should be treated for what it is, as being an isolated individual incident, absent of any other one. Just because we don't know the set of circumstances. This one that we watched today with the sergeant, I think it clearly shows us, like, I don't agree with that all. The sergeant in that. I mean, the dude's handcuffed, he's in the back seat and all this other stuff. Go ahead.
You know what the I don't want to say the real issue, but you know what like really catches me, or like really grabs my attention about that video is if I'm same scenario, right? If I'm wrestling around with this guy, I know he's got a knife in his waist or his pocket, right? If Ryan comes up and grabs me, I'm not gonna turn around and start choking Ryan out, right? Like I'm gonna like elbow, like I'm gonna push Ryan off, but I'm still gonna be focusing on this guy, because like that is my threat, right? Like if you're able to completely redirect your focus on something else,
You ain't that worried
that
about it.
tells me that you ain't really that concerned about what was going on. And in
Yeah.
that video, he turns around and starts like choking her out, like walking all the way back before. And it's like, all right, bro, like you really weren't that concerned with what was going on here.
And if you watch the whole video, you can hear like he was actually like just angry. And this is the backstory to that. I guess this guy that they were arresting was giving the officers a whole bunch of problems on the scene. Like they were giving them a whole bunch of different problems on the scene. And so when this officer gets, when the sergeant gets there, he's frustrated. This guy is doing all sorts of different things and stuff. And so you can see that his pure emotion was coming out and he responded. It was an emotional response.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's what people don't understand. So I like to AJ's point, I don't think his concern was about the suspect. I think his concern was this guy was acting like a freaking turd,
point, yeah,
acting like a baby. And he even says like, you know, I'll send you to hell or some crap like that. Yeah, he does. Like he was, it was deep. Man. To Billy's point, road raging. So anyway, I thought today's discussion was good because we covered both sides. We covered, you know, how you got people on the far one extreme where they're trying to bash police and everything that they're doing. And no matter what it is, even if the good cops exist, they don't care. They don't want to hear it. And we also covered the other far extreme is these officers that are doing wrong things and nobody wants to call them out. And how do you call it out? So I thought this was a good episode. If you guys thought it was a good episode, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really helps us improve our ratings and continue to move up in the algorithm. Some exciting news. So AJ, I ain't even told you this yet. So this is actually kind of exciting for you. I have told Billy the It's Needed conference is coming back.
Let's go.
Yeah. So why did you start laughing? Oh, I don't know.
I start laughing because I'm just finding out. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
That's a big surprise for AJ.
My bad.
He's co-hosting it, by the way.
I know, right? Yeah, you're hosting the whole thing. So the It's Needed conference is coming back, like in person. So if you guys weren't able to attend the first one, man, you guys missed out. This was in 2019, but because of COVID, we had to put things on the back burner. But man, let me tell you, the It's Needed conference is coming back. I've already talked to the venue. I should have a date on the books by the end of this week. So most likely it's going to be in the month of October. So just be cautious if you're scheduling things in the month of October, because that's when we plan on doing the conference most likely. So it's going to be, I've already locked in a couple people as our keynotes. AJ is like, dang, this is all news to me. And bro, this is just like literally like, he like, what, for real? So this is all literally off the press, hot off the press as of today and yesterday. So it's coming back. So it's going to be great. It is, again, if you guys did not go to the first one, it was phenomenal. Matter of fact, I'll show y'all the video, the next episode of the podcast that we put together.
And you've already locked in some speakers. And AJ, we can tell you after, but it's good.
Yeah, we've already locked in the speakers for it. So that's going to be good. We're going to do it bigger. I think the first one we had around 300 people in attendance. This one I'm shooting for 400 to 500 people in attendance. So yeah, we're going to do that. So that is on the books. The other thing too is I am actually starting a new page. It's called Locals. So if you guys were to subscribe today, there's nothing on it. So just we're going to start uploading content on it this week, most likely. But Locals, it's a little bit different. It's a social media platform, but on this page and on this platform, I'm not getting censored. So a lot of you guys know I post a lot of controversial stuff when it comes to police incidents. And sometimes YouTube will either censor my stuff. Sometimes IG will shadow ban me and all this other stuff. This page, Locals, does not censor any of that stuff. So one, that's why I'm going there. Two, me and my wife are going to be doing some new content together. So it should be fun and entertaining. Not like that, you know,
what? Like so, podcast.
Yeah, So we're going to be doing some fun stuff on Locals. I'm going to be giving some advice for people that are in the hiring process for law enforcement. So anyways, if you go on Locals, type in my name, Ryan Tillman, and it says join my community. It is a small subscription, but it's less than a cup of coffee. So it does help me out. You guys know I've gone part-time now, so it helps me continue to guys deliver the best content. AJ and all that. AJ is doing new, unique, different things like that as well. So as we start jumping onto these new, fun new ventures and stuff, we're going to keep you guys updated. Again, this is a family. And so we want to let our family know what we're doing, how we're doing, and where we're going with this. So again, go to locals.com, or you can download the app. Just search Ryan Tillman, and that's where you guys will be able to find this. It's going to be cool because I'm excited because we're going to be able to put stuff on there that we can't put anywhere else. And I'm actually going to go get a little bit more political on that platform because I know it's a protected place. So y'all might hear some of my political views a little bit on this side a little bit.
I might have to hop on.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all will finally get to hear where I stand politically.
He's a closet communist. So. Bernie sticker.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
I got it all.
It's a whole thing.
I got it all. So, but yeah,
He breaks
so
a Klan hood out.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all gonna know I'm, like Clayton Bigsby, but my power. But yeah, this probably went over some of y'all head that don't fall fail. But guys, we love you guys. We appreciate you. I mean, we wouldn't be filming this content if we knew you guys didn't subscribe or support us. So we really appreciate you. We didn't do it one. We're going to actually also, last announcement is we're going to be transitioning away from One Has to Go. We're going to do something else. I know you guys love it. I know this was Billy's thing. This was
Are
Billy's
you cool
thing.
with that, AJ? Is that cool?
Yeah. This was Billy's thing before we hopped on. This tells y'all like me and AJ don't catch up really till we're on here. So it's the most authentic, real stuff. But yeah, that was Billy's idea. We've been doing One Has to Go. It's been fun, but it seems like we're always talking about food and it's just making us fatter. But we're going to replace it with something else that's fun and entertaining. I don't know what that is yet. It might be truth or a lie. It might be I don't know.
Give us ideas.
Yeah, give us ideas. Shoot us your ideas in the comment section, all that other stuff. But we're going to do something different. So with any of that, with all of that, I love what you guys are doing. I love all you fans. Thanks for following us. And with that, we'll see y'all next week. Peace. I think I did too early. I don't know if Billy was ready.
And we still live.
AJ, what up, boy? Ryan Tillman, let him have it. Savage on the set, AJ. Ryan Tillman.